When I entered the county courthouse in Charleston, South Carolina, my cane tapped against the marble like a metronome. Slow, rhythmic, each step echoing off the vaulted ceiling, loud enough to make the security guard pause. The gallery lights felt harsher than I remembered, brighter like they were designed to expose the weak. I tightened my grip on the handle. I wasn't weak. Not yet. My son Clinton sat at the plaintiff's table looking polished in a suit I know he didn't pay for. He leaned back in his chair and let out a laugh the moment he saw me. Not a nervous chuckle. A mean, triumphant laugh, the kind a gambler makes when they think the pot is guaranteed. His wife Sierra didn't laugh. She just lowered her eyes, feigning pity. Or maybe shame. Hard to tell with her. She always did pride herself on playing both sides of a room. She tugged her jacket sleeve down like she didn't want to be seen, then angled her face away from me. For a moment it stung. The son I raised, the boy I taught to throw a baseball in the backyard, now smirking at me like I was a problem finally being taken care of. I swallowed the bitterness like bile. The bailiff cleared his throat as I passed. "Mr. Rourke, I didn't know it was you." I nodded back. No need to correct him. Not yet. As I found my seat, my thoughts drifted to the reason we were here. Their petition to strip me of legal autonomy. They were trying to have me declared incompetent, unfit to manage my estate, and committed to a care facility I'd never heard of. Apparently, my memory was failing. Apparently, I couldn't be trusted. Apparently, grief had ruined me beyond repair. Grief. That was their angle. They thought losing my wife, Lydia, had gutted me so completely that I'd slipped into a fog I couldn't climb out of. And maybe I had for a while. The funeral had been a blur of umbrellas and whispered condolences in the rain. The house had felt like an empty museum, every room echoing with her absence. But I wasn't lost. I was observing. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you are watching from. It helps more than you know. Across the aisle, Clinton whispered something to Sierra, and she gave him a soft, polished smile. The kind that used to charm waiters into free desserts. I remembered when that charm was directed at me. At our home. At Lydia's table. Now it was ammunition. The courtroom door opened again, and the judge entered. Judge Rosalind Pierce. When she sat down and looked at the docket, her hand froze. Her eyes flicked up to me and the color drained from her face. Not in fear, in recognition, because before I retired I had stood in this very courthouse, not as a defendant, not as a victim, but as a federal prosecutor with a reputation for dismantling criminal enterprises one subpoena at a time. I wasn't a judge like so many love to romanticize in these stories. I was the one who built cases that judges couldn't ignore. Judge Pierce cleared her throat. Is this the Owen Rourke?" the gallery murmured. Sierra straightened in her seat. Clinton's smirk faltered, just slightly, like a hairline crack on a mask. I didn't smile. I just folded my hands on the table and met the judge's gaze. "Yes, Your Honor." She blinked, leaned back, and let her fingers tap the bench. "Counselors approach." My son's attorney, a jittery man who looked too young to shave properly, scrambled to the bench. Clinton followed, his confidence shaken but not shattered. Not yet. I stayed seated. I didn't need to approach. My reputation walked for me. As they whispered with the judge, I scanned the room. Each detail tucked itself into memory like pins on a corkboard. Sierra's trembling leg, the crushed manila envelope of forged medical records on their table, the faint scent of bleach on Clinton's collar like he'd rushed to clean something before coming here. They had a plan. They had documentation. They had fabricated testimony lined up. But they had made one mistake. They believed I was alone. They didn't know that since Lydia passed, I'd been assembling something just as dangerous as a criminal indictment, something they would never see coming. Because they weren't trying to take my estate. They were standing on land that I had already turned into a trap. And as Judge Pierce lowered her voice, I realized something that made my pulse steady. Clinton wasn't the architect of this scheme. He was the pawn. Someone else was pulling the strings. Someone I once trusted. The judge dismissed us for a brief recess so she could review the petition with fresh context. That was her polite way of saying she needed time to reassess whether this proceeding should even exist now that she knew who I was. Clinton didn't look at me as he walked past. Sierra did. Her gaze lingered for a second too long, like she was searching for something. Remorse, guilt, or maybe a trace of the man she once hugged at Christmas. But all she found was the reflection of her own choices. I stayed seated until the room cleared, letting the quiet settle. My hands shook slightly, but not from age or fear. Adrenaline. That courtroom had always felt like an arena to me, and today I was stepping back into the ring. I used to love this place. The crisp formality, the polished wood, the echo of justice being spoken, but now it felt different, corrupted, not by criminals, but by family. You see, people expect betrayal from enemies. It's clean, predictable. But when it comes from those you raised, fed, bailed out of their messes, that betrayal is radioactive. It gets into your bones. I straightened my coat and forced my body upright. I refused to look like the version of me they were trying to present. Frail, confused, diminished. I wasn't any of those things. Not anymore. I walked out into the courthouse hallway. Clinton was waiting for me. Sierra hovered behind him, arms crossed like a shield. "Dad," Clinton said, fake warmth coating his voice. "I wish you had told me you were coming. We could have planned this better." I stared at him, letting silence do the work. He hated silence. He always had. Lydia used to tease him, said he needed noise to drown out his conscience. Sierra bit her lip. "We're just trying to help," she whispered. "You've changed." After she passed. Ah, there it was. Lydia. Grief is a tool to them. The sympathy card they hoped would seal the coffin on my autonomy. "I changed," I echoed. "Yes. I learned who you really are." Clinton bristled. "We're doing what's best for you. It's clear you can't manage everything on your own anymore. It's better this way." "Better for who?" "For everyone," he snapped. "For the stability of the estate. For the future. For the debts you owe?" I cut in. His nostrils flared. Sierra flinched like the word burned. There it was. The crack. The word debts was a pry bar. He opened his mouth, shut it, then leaned in close. "You don't know everything." "I know enough," I said. "Enough to see your signature on things you shouldn't have touched. Enough to recognize desperation in a man who's been cornered." Sierra's voice trembled. "Please, Mr. Rourke, you don't understand the pressure we're under." Pressure. That word echoed. Pressure makes diamonds, but it also makes explosives. I walked past them, cane tapping, not because I needed it, but because they thought I did. Back outside, the air tasted like salt from the harbor. I made my way to my car, unlocking the driver's door with a key I never planned to surrender. Inside the glove compartment was what I needed. A burner phone, prepaid and unregistered, wrapped in a cloth napkin from Lydia's favorite restaurant. I pressed speed dial 1. A voice answered immediately. "This is Marlowe." Marlowe, my former investigator. Retirement had softened neither his tone nor his instincts. "I need an update," I said. "You won't like it," he replied. Paper rustled on his end. "Your son visited Greystone Financial 3 days ago. Same day Sierra accessed your medical insurance records. After that, a warehouse outside of North Charleston, registered to a shell company called Hartwell Solutions." "And who owns Hartwell Solutions?" He hesitated. "Clinton is listed as managing partner. But the owner of record?" Another rustle. "Gerard Lyman." The name hit like a hammer. Gerard Lyman was no amateur. He was a financial snake with a talent for draining fortunes before anyone realized they were bleeding. I'd seen him try it before, back in my prosecutor days, but he slipped through the cracks with offshore accounts and forged trails. He wasn't after money. He was after control, and he had found my son's vulnerability like a wolf sniffing out a wound. "I need evidence," I said. "I'm already gathering it," Marlowe replied. "But listen, there's something else. Lyman's been visiting a memory care facility just outside Charleston. Same one listed in the petition against you." My blood ran cold. They didn't just want control of my estate. They wanted to put me away, where I couldn't talk, couldn't testify, where I'd vanish. I ended the call and stared at the horizon. The courthouse windows reflected the sun like a beacon, or a warning. This wasn't about incompetence. This was a coup. And if they thought I was unarmed in this fight, they'd forgotten one thing. I raised Clinton. I taught him to think. He never learned I think further. I turned the key in the ignition. It was time to prepare the counterattack. Because if Gerard Lyman believed he could use my family to trap me, he hadn't yet realized I spent my life building cases against men exactly like him, and I still had one left in me. I didn't go home right away. Home wasn't safe, not anymore. If Sierra had accessed my medical records and Clinton had signatures on documents I never signed, then the house was compromised. Phones tapped, mail intercepted, maybe even someone watching from the street. Instead, I drove to the one place no one would think to look for me, the old marina on James Island where Lydia and I used to take evening walks. The docks groaned under my steps as I made my way toward the far end where boats rocked gently, ropes creaking in the wind like whispers. The marina office was dark, but the back door was unlocked. The owner owed me a favor, a quiet one. Inside, dust floated through slanted beams of light. I pulled the tarp from an old wooden desk, coughing as particles filled the air. This would be my base. I spread everything out. Printouts from my home safe, copies of insurance statements, photographs of forged signatures I had taken weeks earlier when suspicion first ignited. I didn't know what Clinton and Sierra were plotting back then, but I knew enough to follow the scent of smoke before the fire took the roof. On the desk sat Lydia's old leather planner. I hadn't opened it since the funeral. Even touching it felt like betrayal, but I needed strength, and she was always where I found it. Inside the planner was a photo. Me, Lydia, and Clinton at his college graduation. His arm slung around my shoulder, smile wide as the world. That young man, the one in the photograph, would never have done this. I whispered to the empty room. Where did I go wrong with him, Lydia? The waves answered with silence. My phone buzzed. Marlowe again. I found more, he said without greeting. Your signature on a loan consolidation form, dated 6 months ago. You didn't sign it. No, I said, I didn't. Then Clinton forged your name. He put up your estate as collateral for the loan. If you're declared incompetent, Sierra becomes successor trustee. Successor trustee. Control. Ownership. Access. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to replace me. I closed my eyes. Breathed. Counted to 10. No, to 12. Like Lydia used to make me do when I got angry at incompetence in court. Numbers in sequence. A reset. Marlowe, I said. I need something that makes this undeniable. Hard evidence. Enough to bring to Judge Pierce before the petition moves forward. Something to expose Lyman. There is one thing, he said. A ledger. Physical. Lyman keeps it old school to avoid digital forensics. It's at the warehouse. Hartwell Solutions, but Owen, it's not unattended. He's got people there. People? Men who aren't afraid to break bones for a paycheck. I didn't answer immediately. The marina smelled like gasoline and salt. I was 71 years old. 71 spelled out in the creases of my hands. But I wasn't dead yet, and I wasn't afraid. I'll go tonight, I said. Don't, Marlowe snapped. Wait for me. I'll meet you at the marina at dusk. I ended the call without promising anything. The sun dipped lower, bleeding orange across the horizon. The marina lights flickered on, reflecting off the water like shards of glass. As the day slipped into dusk, an engine rumbled outside. I turned. A car rolled into the lot. Clinton's sedan. He stepped out alone, scanning the lot like he expected someone to ambush him. He clutched a manila folder tight to his chest. He wasn't here to hurt me. He was here to hide. Dad, his voice cracked. Can we talk? I didn't invite him in. I made him speak from the doorway. What do you want, Clinton? He looked older than he had that morning. Shoulders heavy, eyes rimmed red. I need you to drop the opposition to the petition. You mean let you declare me incompetent? He flinched. It's not like that. It's exactly like that, he swallowed. If you don't, things will get worse. Lyman isn't who you think he is. I know exactly who he is, I cut in. Do you? Clinton's eyes darted back toward his car like he expected headlights to appear at any moment. He took a step closer. I owe him money, he whispered. A lot. I thought I could handle it, but then Sierra... He stopped. The wind filled the silence. Sierra what? I pressed. He hesitated, then... Sierra led me to him. She said he could help us, that he knew how to restructure assets. I didn't know he wanted you out of the picture entirely. My breath stilled. So Sierra wasn't the passenger in the scheme, she was the driver. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. His voice broke. "Because I think they're going to move you. Today. Take you to that facility. And once you're there, none of this matters. We won't matter." I stared at my son, my boy, and saw the parts of him worth saving buried under panic and regret. I softened, just slightly. "Give me the folder," I said. He handed it over, trembling. Receipts, bank transfers, Sierra's emails, communications with Lyman. Enough to prove conspiracy, enough to destroy them. Clinton wiped his eyes. "Dad, please, I never wanted to hurt you." I took a breath, measured, heavy. "Then help me stop them," I said. He nodded. "But first," I added, "you need to understand something." "What?" "This doesn't erase what you did." He nodded again. A broken acceptance. But before we could speak another word, headlights cut through the dark. A black SUV rolled into the lot. Doors opened. 2 silhouettes stepped out. Tall, broad, moving like men who didn't come to talk. Clinton's voice cracked. "They found me." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "No," I whispered. "They found me." And as the men approached, I realized the men from the SUV fanned out like they'd rehearsed it. One came straight down the dock, boots thudding on the planks. The other circled wide, cutting off any path back to the parking lot. These weren't amateurs. Their posture said military or private security. Their eyes said loyal to money, not law. Clinton backed up until his shoulders hit the marina wall. "Dad," he rasped. "Don't run," I said quietly. "That's what they expect." The first man reached us. Square jaw, close-cropped hair. Didn't bother with introductions. "Mr. Rourke," he said, voice like gravel. "Mr. Lyman requests your cooperation. We're to escort you to a vehicle, voluntarily." "And if I decline?" I asked. He smiled without warmth. "Don't." I slid my cane slightly forward, adjusting my weight. To them it looked like shakiness. To me it was leverage. I knew how to move in close spaces. I had escorted felons in federal hallways half my life. There are angles to bodies and terrain. Physics that don't care about strength. "You can tell Gerard," I said, enunciating every syllable, "that I'll meet him on my terms, not his." The second man stepped in. A hand reached for my arm. What happened next was instinct. I pivoted, jammed the rubber cane tip between his feet and yanked. His legs tangled, weight shifting. He fell sideways with a splash as the dock rail gave way. In the same breath, I shoved Clinton behind me. The first man lunged. I moved. Not like a young man, not fast, but precise. I redirected his momentum, letting him collide with the marina post. His shoulder struck wood with a sickening thud. He grunted, stunned, and I snatched the phone clipped to his belt before he could recover. "Call Marlowe," I told Clinton. "Dusk or earlier. Tell him Hartwell Solutions is sending enforcers." Clinton fumbled with his own phone, hands shaking. The second man resurfaced, sputtering, and I turned to follow Clinton into the office. But headlights cut across the lot again. A second SUV. Doors opened. Sierra stepped out. She was dressed sharp. Blazer, slacks, hair pinned back like she was heading to a board meeting instead of a confrontation in a marina. She approached with the slow confidence of someone who believed the winning move was already on the table. "Owen," she said smoothly, "you're making this harder than it needs to be." Her voice was calm, too calm. Behind her, a man in a charcoal suit stared without blinking. Thin frame, slick hair, expression like polished glass. Gerard Lyman. Up close, he looked like the kind of predator who feeds on paperwork. The kind that leaves no fingerprints except signatures. I'd prosecuted 10 versions of him in my life. "Mr. Rourke," he called out. "I've heard so much about you. A pleasure." "Wish I could say the same," I replied. Sierra took a step forward. "Please just come with us. The evaluation at the facility is mandatory. The sooner we get it done, the sooner we can resolve everything." "Resolve," I echoed. That's an interesting word for erasing a man's existence. Clinton moved between us. "Sierra, stop. We're done. I'm out." Her eyes flicked to him and something ugly flashed. "You don't get to walk away from this." "You lied to me," he said, voice cracking. "You said he'd be taken care of. You never said that he'd be institutionalized," Sierra finished. "Clinton, use your head. He's unstable. He's dangerous. He's slipping. The court will see it." Lyman stepped up beside her. "Your father-in-law is a liability. and liabilities are addressed before they become headlines. There it was. Not concern, not grief. Risk management. My cane tapped once on the dock. Tell me something, Lyman. Why go through all this trouble? You could have just asked for my help. He chuckled. You're too sharp, Rourke. Men like you only understand leverage, not partnership. If I'm such a problem, I said, why not remove me the old-fashioned way? A forged will. An accident. His eyes gleamed. Accidents are sloppy. Institutions are cleaner. Paper trails are divine. Sierra gestured to the men. Take him. They advanced. But before they reached us, engines roared from the opposite end of the marina. 2 vehicles. 1 black pickup. 1 dusty sedan. Marlowe stepped out of the truck like a storm front. Coat open, badge chain swinging against his chest, even though he technically had no jurisdiction anymore. Retirement hadn't dulled his presence. Beside him, a woman climbed out. Tall, graying hair, courthouse pin on her lapel. Judge Rosalind Pierce. She stood like a monolith, heels planted on the gravel. Step away from Mr. Rourke, she called. Lyman's face froze. Sierra's expression curdled. Judge Pierce held up a document. Emergency injunction granted. Effective immediately, this petition is suspended pending investigation. Sierra sputtered. On what grounds? Pierce's eyes found me. Then Clinton. Then the manila folder in my hand. On grounds of probable fraud, coercion and conspiracy to defraud the court, she said. And given new evidence, we may be discussing attempted custodial interference as well. The wind died. The docks creaked. Even the gulls seemed to hold their breath. Marlowe nodded at me once, a silent acknowledgement that the cavalry had arrived. But I knew this wasn't finished. Lyman wouldn't fold here. Men like him didn't go down quietly. They pivot, they survive, they strike again from another angle. He smoothed his tie. This isn't over. No, I agreed. It's not. Because this wasn't the confrontation, this was just the exposure. And as Lyman retreated to his SUV, eyes like knives, I realized the warehouse wasn't just our next destination. It was where this entire plot was born and where I planned to end it for good. Judge Pierce didn't arrest anyone on the dock. She couldn't. Not yet. All she had was cause to halt the petition and open an investigation. But it was enough to scatter the players, like cockroaches when the kitchen light snaps on. Lyman and Sierra left in separate SUVs, phones glued to their ears before the doors even shut. Clinton didn't leave at all. He slumped onto a bench near the office like a man watching the foundation of his life crumble. Marlowe stayed with him. I didn't. I walked to Judge Pierce. You know this doesn't stop him, I said. She nodded. It buys you time. I need more than time. She lowered her voice. Then bring me something I can use, something irrefutable. I thought of the ledger Marlowe mentioned, the one stored at the warehouse registered to Hartwell Solutions. It wasn't just a record book. It was the spinal cord of their operation. If we got it, the rest of the scheme would collapse. Give me until morning, I said. She hesitated. Owen, you're not law enforcement anymore. I met her eyes. Neither is Lyman. Pierce didn't try to stop me. She just pressed a card into my palm. If you find what you need, call me before you hand it to anyone else. I didn't wait for morning. The warehouse sat on the edge of North Charleston, past the shipyards where rusted cranes towered like skeletons. The district felt abandoned. Streetlights flickering, asphalt cracked like broken glass. Hartwell Solutions glowed faintly in the dark, a rectangle of brick and steel with security lights strobing across the lot. Clinton insisted on coming. I didn't want that, but maybe he needed to. There is a point in every man's life when he must face the consequences of who he's become. He drove. I navigated. We parked behind a row of derelict trailers. From here, the warehouse door was a smear of metal under buzzing lights. You don't have to do this, I told him. He stared straight ahead. I do. His hands were steady now. Fear had been replaced with something else. Resolve. We moved low along the fence. I counted camera rotations, one slow sweep every 12 seconds. Motion sensors angled downward, sporadic dark spots along the fence line. Lyman trusted patterns. Most predators do. We slipped through a gap where the chain link bowed outward. Inside the fence line, the air smelled of oil and cold iron. Dad, Clinton whispered, if we get caught, We won't, I replied. If we do, we keep our mouths shut. And if they do more than talk? I paused, adjusted my grip on the cane. Then we survive. We reached the loading dock. A keypad blinked next to the metal door. I recognized the model. Older, likely still using standard 6-letter access strings. Lyman was clever, but he underestimated the power of habit. What would he pick, I muttered, if he wanted to remind himself why he does this? Clinton stared at the keys, thinking. Then he tried something. GREED1. Denied. He tried again. POWERS. Denied. I exhaled slowly. He doesn't view it as greed or power. Those are symptoms. What does he want to believe he is? Clinton's eyes widened. He typed, SAVIOR, green light. The lock clicked open. Inside, the warehouse hummed with electricity. Rows of filing cabinets lined the walls. Laptops covered folding tables like a tech graveyard. In the center of the room sat an oak desk, out of place among the metal and concrete. On the desk, a leather-bound ledger. We approached as if it might vanish. I opened it. Names, dates, balances, offshore accounts, debt transfers disguised as consulting fees, medical diagnoses fabricated to justify asset control, a list of clients targeted for institutionalization to expedite estate access. And there, on page 19, my name. Owen Rourke. Projected liquidation value $4.8 million USD, projected as though I were inventory. Clinton leaned over my shoulder. His breath hitched. For the first time since this nightmare began, he looked like someone seeing clearly. Like a man waking up from hypnosis. This is it, he whispered. This ends it. I closed the ledger and tucked it under my arm. A voice echoed from the rafters. You're right, it said. It does. We turned. Gerard Lyman stood on the catwalk above us, flanked by 2 guards. Not the marina thugs. These men were bigger, armed. Lyman didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just descended the stairs with the composure of a man arriving to sign a contract rather than commit a crime. I knew you couldn't resist, he said. Men like you always need the last word. The final blow. The dramatic act of justice. He reached the floor, stood 10 paces away. You were supposed to fade, he continued. To retire, to grieve. But instead you chose to fight. He lifted his hand. A gun clicked behind us. Clinton froze. Lyman smiled. So let me ask you, Mr. Rourke, how much justice is a man willing to die for? I stepped in front of my son. Cane planted, spine straight. As much, I said, as it takes to make sure you never hurt another family again. Lyman's smile didn't break. He snapped his fingers. The guard chambered around, and as the sound echoed across the concrete, I realized I had one final move left. One that would decide whether I walked out of this warehouse as a free man or not at all. The guard's gun stayed leveled on us, the barrel gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Clinton's breath came fast beside me, fear struggling with whatever courage he had rediscovered. Lyman watched like this was theater, like we existed for his entertainment. I shifted slightly, cane angled like an extension of my arm. Not a weapon, a signal. You think you know the ending, I told him. You think this moment is the conclusion to your story. And mine. Lyman spread his hands. It is. You will be escorted to the facility. The ledger will be destroyed. The petition will be reinstated with proper medical testimony. And you, Mr. Rourke, will spend the rest of your days in a very quiet wing of a place that doesn't allow visitors. Clinton swallowed hard. This is my fault. No, I murmured. It's mine. For not teaching you how to spot a predator sooner. Lyman smirked. Touching. Truly, but we're pressed for time. He nodded to the guard. The gun raised higher. I felt my heart beat slow. Not panic, not adrenaline. Just a razor focus, the kind I used to feel right before cross-examining a witness I knew was lying. My eyes tracked the guard's stance. Left foot forward, weight uneven, trigger discipline sloppy. He wasn't a professional. Just someone who thought a gun made him powerful. Before you pull that trigger, I said, tell me one thing, Gerard. Lyman rolled his eyes. This is unnecessary. Why does your ledger have 2 sets of numbers? That made him pause. Because I hadn't just read the pages. I had photographed the underside of the binding where impression marks showed older entries. Duplicate books, a backup trail, insurance. For him, Lyman's face tightened. You always were too observant, and you always underestimated what that meant, I replied. That's when a spotlight flooded the room. Voices boomed from the catwalk above, authoritative, echoing. Federal officers, drop your weapons. The guard spun. The gun clattered to the floor. Lyman froze, eyes darting upward as 3 U.S. Marshals descended the stairs with tactical precision. Weapons trained, formation tight. Behind them, Judge Pierce followed, chin lifted, determination carved into her expression. Clinton exhaled so hard it was almost a sob. I lowered my cane. No need for pretense now. Judge Pierce's voice carried across the warehouse. Mr. Rourke called me. I traced the photos from his burner. Combined with your ledger's entries, we have enough for a federal injunction. Lyman's composure cracked. This is coercion. Pierce cut him off. This is conspiracy, racketeering, medical fraud, and custodial interference. You are under arrest. The marshals moved in. Lyman lunged, not for me, but for the flames of a metal barrel nearby, where shredded documents smoldered. He thrust the ledger toward the fire. Instinct moved me faster than thought. I stepped in, bringing my cane up beneath his arm, twisting. The ledger flew free, landing at Clinton's feet. The marshals piled onto Lyman before he could recover. Steel cuffs snapped shut. It was over. Not with a gunshot, not with a death, but with proof. Clinton picked up the ledger, trembling. Is this enough to fix it? No, I said. It's enough to start. His eyes brimmed. Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't forgive him right then. Forgiveness is not a switch. It's a negotiation with the past. But I put a hand on his shoulder. Recovery isn't about apologies, I said. It's about what you build after the damage. Marlowe entered the scene like he owned it, surveying the chaos. You always did have a flair for drama, Owen. Lucky you enjoy working without a job, I replied. He smirked. Retirement is boring. Judge Pierce joined us, watching the marshals escort Lyman and the guards out in cuffs. Sierra wasn't here. She would be picked up later. Clinton would testify. The facility would be investigated, and I would no longer be alone. Pierce offered me a hand. You protected your legacy today. I shook my head. I protected my life. The legacy comes later. When the sun rose, we were sitting outside the warehouse on the tailgate of Marlowe's truck. The air smelled like diesel and morning dew. Clinton leaned against me like he hadn't done since he was a boy. He stared forward. Do you think I can fix what I broke? You start by choosing different, I said. Every day, every decision, one step at a time. What about us? He asked. I looked out over the harbor, remembering Lydia's laugh, her hand slipping into mine. Us, I said, starts with honesty. You tell me when you struggle. I tell you when I'm afraid. And we learn to trust again. Clinton nodded. We watched the marshals haul evidence out of the warehouse. Stacks of ledgers, computers, documents. Pieces of a machine built to exploit grief. A machine we had dismantled. I wasn't the same man I had been before all this. But I wasn't defeated either. I had been underestimated, manipulated, cornered. But I was still here. Older, scarred, sharper than ever. Because the truth is this. Even when the world tries to write your ending for you, you can always pick up the pen. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.